Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Another episode here of News and Opinion. I do this about once a week. So, what's the topic for the week that I'm going to talk about? Well, let's talk about June 10th. Not June 10, June 10th. All right. I'm going to be talking about a little bit about that. Um, Interesting. June 10th, Juneteenth. Um, maybe, maybe I mispronounced it. Juneteenth. When I first saw it, I thought it was June 10th, but maybe it's called Juneteenth. So if I mispronounce it, I apologize. I thought it was something about June 10th, but I was wrong about that. So, anyways, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm also going to talk about the shooting in Atlanta. Let's see what it was. Rashard Brooks shooting in Atlanta. The police were. I saw the body cam of the police footage, the body cam. I also saw some other videos. Also saw the DA's live announcement and what happened after the shooting and everything. So I'll talk a little bit about that and the aftermath, not only from the protest and somewhat rioting going on. The Wendy's got burned down. Somebody felt that it was the fault of Wendy's for calling the police, all right? For calling the police while someone who was sleeping at the drive-through, probably intoxicated or on drugs or whatever. Uh, Definitely some influence, under the influence. I did see the video. There's some there was some intoxication going on, and so we'll talk about the aftermath of all that. What's the other thing I'm going to talk about? Oh yes, the other shooting. So you got two spectrums of different things going on. You got a shooting of Rashad Brooks, and then you have a shooting in Albuquerque, and so uh, Antifa protest. I don't know if it's Antifa, but some kind of Antifa left wing extreme fringe organization or gathering protesting in Albuquerque, trying to pull down a statue or whatever, essentially defacing or destruction of property. And there was scuffle, a scuffle, and a potential um, threat, and somebody who was not a part of the militia, not a part of the militia, but somebody who was there who didn't like what was going on, got into a scuffle, walked away, and then was followed by the mob and threatened, and essentially life was being threatened. Okay, there's no doubt about that. Somebody's life was threatened, that's for sure, and end up in a shooting. And unfortunately, it was somebody on the Antifa side, the left wing extreme radical child. I would say child because most of these people on the left, radical extremist groups here have a mind of a child, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So I'll be talking about the Albuquerque shooting, and then finally, oh, not finally, but second to last, Chaz or Chad turned into Chop or Chop Suey or Chump. I don't know how to pronounce it. From Chaz to Chump. Anyways, I'll get into that a little bit later, and I'll be talking about that. And then finally, are we in civil war? Are we in civil war? Are we going into a civil war? Is civil war going to happen? Well, I do have an answer for you. Okay, and that'll be the last thing I'll talk about. So civil war will be the last thing, and the answer may surprise you or it may not. Stick around, all right? So let's go to the first thing we'll talk about is June 10th or Juneteenth. So if you don't know anything about it, and I don't blame you for not knowing anything because I didn't know anything. As a matter of fact, the only time I've heard about it was actually when Trump, yes, Trump, President Donald Trump talked about it, and then all the fake news media outlets out there blasted Trump for talking about it. That's the only time I heard about it. And the interesting thing is when I finally Googled what the hell June 10th, I thought it was June 10th. It may be pronounced Juneteenth, but it has nothing to do with June the 10th. It's something to do with June 19th. Okay. So this is very confusing. And so apparently originating in Texas, which I live in Texas now. I've been in Texas for 10 years and never knew about this. But originating in Texas, celebrated annually on the 19th of June, supposedly throughout America, all right, is basically when the Union Army General Jordan Granger announcing federal orders in Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1865. Now, back in the old days, Galveston was the place in Texas, was like the place to be. Not as much as anymore, ever since the hurricane that basically devastated Galveston. But apparently, in Galveston, Texas, on June 19th, 1865. All right, 1865. So over 100 years. Over 100 years. Okay, proclaiming that all slaves in Texas were free. Now, this, from what I understand, was the last state to proclaim the emancipation, a proclamation of slaves. So that's what Juneteenth or 10th, I think it's Juneteenth, celebrates, which was actually done on June 19th. And I am recording this on June 19th at 10:22 p.m. 2020. But by the time you hear this video or watch this video, it'll probably be June 20th, 2020, Saturday. So today is Friday, tomorrow is Saturday. So I didn't even know about this. And matter of fact, there's the Ashton Villa in Galveston. It still stands today. I'm not sure if it's a historical landmark or if it's just a building there that people rent out to live. But it still stands there today. And I bet if you go down to Galveston right now, you could probably actually see it. Again, I don't know if it's actual historical landmark or if it's just private property now, but apparently there's the Ashton Villas where General Order Number 3 was read on June 19th, 1865. All right, over 100 years. All right, this is over 100 years. First time I've ever heard about it. First time ever. And I've been living in Texas over 10 years now. I've gone to Galveston. I've never even heard about it. Never. And I spend many, many summers out here in Texas. And not a day went by where I saw a parade, any news media talk about this, not even local news media. I've gone out to the beaches in Galveston and never seen a parade for Juneteenth ever until today. I didn't even go out. I just read about it from all the so-called mainstream media, quote-unquote mainstream media. So my question is, why is it so popular now? Why is it so popular now? It's been this celebration, and it appears to be celebrated in Texas. It appears to be a government holiday in Texas. Appears to be. Why is it celebrated so much, so adamantly right now? And it's been around for over 100 years. And again, I didn't hear about it until Trump started talking about it. Literally, until Trump started talking about it. then the other news media started talking about it. It's kind of interesting how things turn out. I bet you it's not even really that big, despite the fact how much it's being pushed. All right, social engineered. I can only say if people really want this, in after 5 years, people will be celebrating it constantly. I doubt in 5 years you're ever going to hear about Juneteenth again, and that's just my opinion. All right, all right. So let's go on to Richard Brooks here. All right, Richard Brooks. Jeez. From one to another, from George Floyd to Richard Brooks, it's never going to end. It's never going to end. You know why? Because this happens all the time. Okay? And not only with just black folks, but with white folks, with Mexican folks, with Asian folks, with Indian folks. This happens all the time. You know why? Because we live in a dangerous country. Now, I did see the body cam. I did see the footage. I saw the security footage. I saw the live when it was live, the Atlanta DA making its charges. I kind of have an idea of everything that supposedly went on, at least that I could find, and it still doesn't change my mind about the whole situation. I do think it was justified. The shooting was justified. That's if you ask me. Do I think it was right? No, I don't think it was right. Could they have done something different? Yes. Yes, but that's 2020. Like, could they have called a taxi for this guy? Yeah. Could they have just let him go and drive on home? Yeah. But we all know that's not how reality works, okay? That's not how reality works. Um, for many, many years, drunk driving, intoxicated driving has been heavily enforced. Heavily enforced. I don't see why it should be any different in this situation than any other situation. There are many, many organizations that frown upon drunk driving or intoxicated driving. So it's just unfortunate that this situation ended up in a death, a shooting. So I think the media is making a lot to do with it. I think it's trying to create another George Floyd scenario. But let me tell you, this stuff happens every day. Every day. So how long before the general public gets wary? How long before the communities in these areas get very wary to the point where people stop caring? All right, the protests don't happen. People can't protest 24/7, 365 days a year. I don't think they can. I think they're doing it now because they're on unemployment. They're receiving unemployment money. Um, so as long as they're receiving those subsidies through the state, the government, and they're out there protesting, they can do that all day. I can tell you right now, if they were not receiving any of these subsidies, there's a good chance you wouldn't see very much protest because people have lives to live, you got bills to pay. Protesting, spending your day out there protesting, you're not making any income, you're not going to be protesting, not very long anyway. And then going to jail, getting bailed, all that stuff, just something's going to give, okay? And gravity just doesn't give. What goes up must come down eventually. So there's my take. I do think it was justified, just from what I've seen. Now, what happened after? Did the police officer kick a dead body? That shouldn't have any bearing on what happened before then. So maybe it was done in bad taste, whatever. Anyways, there's charges on the two police officers. Will it stick? Will it stick? I don't know. I don't know. This is going to be tough. There's many trials coming up here with police officers that are questionable on whether a conviction will get done, or will they be convicted. Um, it's going to be a long summer, a long summer. So a lot of opportunities for protest before and after the election. I could tell you that much. So let's go on to the to the other side of the spectrum. Albuquerque. Wow, what did Bugs Bunny say? He should have taken a left at Albuquerque, or was it a right? I don't know. Either way, somebody should have taken a left at Albuquerque and not a and should have avoided the whole area. I did see the video of the incident from the time let me see, Mr. Baca, 31-year-old Mr. Baca. I also heard he was a former councilman. I don't know how true that is. Haven't seen any more reports on that. But Mr. Baca was at the protest, quote unquote, peaceful protest where they had a pick and chains at this protest. They're trying to tear down a statue of a conquistador out in New Mexico, supposedly. A real easier and simpler way would have been to submit a proposal to the local government to have it removed. That would have been a real simpler and easier way to do it, but people had to come out with chains and picks and axes and forks, pitchforks, and whatever, bats and knives and skateboards, and try to tear down the statue. So from what I saw, Mr. Baca did get a little aggressive with a female protester, walked away, and then the mob started to follow Mr. Baca. And already he was being assaulted, all right? He was already, in my opinion, already in danger. Started walking away. The mob started following him. And eventually they tried to detain him. And they got into another scuffle. And apparently Mr. Scott Williams, 39-year-old Scott Williams, picked up a skateboard. I don't think it was his. Picked up a skateboard, swung it at Mr. Baca, and may even had a knife as well. And as soon as that happened, Mr. Baca took out his concealed firearm and started to shoot Mr. Williams 4 times. Mr. Williams went down very quickly. Very quickly. So the message or the lesson learned is, do not do stupid things in stupid places, and do not assume just because you're a left-wing extreme radical that you can commit an act of violence against someone else and they're going to just let you bash their heads in or get knifed or anything. You don't know who has a gun. You don't know who's carrying a gun. And on top of that, the DA dropped the charges against Mr. Baca. All right, it was self-defense, and it was, It was clearly self-defense. So I think left-wing radical extremists, they live in immature reality. I think they've never tasted the cruelty of life. They've been protected in their little sandbox, and I don't think they realize how things really work. And I think this is the beginning or the end. I'm not sure. The beginning of the end or the end of the beginning of where you will see more of this. You may see more of this, and potentially even on both sides. Potentially, depends depending on the situation. So is this um, you know, is this going to cause a civil war? I'm getting to that. Stay with me, all right? So that's what happened, and I do think that was also a justified shooting. That was self defense. That was self defense. All right. So uh, last but not least, let's go to Chomp or Chaz or Chad. I don't know which it is anymore. They keep changing it. Chomp, Chaz, Chump. I think a lot of these chumps that are in the Chaz are eating a lot of chop suey with Chad. Oh goodness. So the more I watch what's going on in Seattle, all right, the more I'm laughing. All right, these people are making a fool of themselves. They're showing they're showing the rest of the world and the rest of America that these people have no idea on how the world works. All right, they're out of touch with reality. They've also are bringing attention to that whole radical extreme left wing movement that is going on in mostly inner cities, liberal states, liberal cities, mostly West Coast, so Washington, Portland, California, maybe in the East Coast, mostly New York, but not exclusively to New York. Liberal states, liberal cities, very liberal cities that basically nurture these left wing radicals, and they look to me like they're mostly young millennial, Generation Z, or whatever before that, or whatever's next. Very little life experience, very little life, like real world life experience. I think they've been nurtured in their community to be this way. They're literally playing in their sandbox. All right, the 6 block radius or the 6 blocks of Chapel Hill is nothing more than a sandbox, a playground for radical left, extreme fringe, all right, Antifa like, Antifa ish uh, wannabes, all right? They're just wannabes. They're idealistic, and I could tell you that the attention that they're getting from the mainstream media, I don't think it's doing them any favors because the rest of America is looking at this and going, not in my backyard. All right, don't come to my backyard. Stay in your little playground, your little sandbox, and keep it there. Don't bring it out here. And just to show you, I think there was, a Black Lives Matter protest, and you know what? The Black Lives Matter movement is being bunched together or combined into this left wing extreme radical movement, which are mostly just young, white, upper middle, middle, middle class to upper middle class, maybe lower upper class group of people, all right, who think that social justice is their life cause. Um, Social justice, I understand, that's what they want to do. That's fine. But it takes more than, you know, um, it takes more than virtue signaling to get things done in this world. Like real stuff needs to get done. And so, again, I think they're ignorant, stupid, and they just don't have enough life experience to understand how things really work. And they're being nurtured in these safe zones. I call them safe zones, little playground areas. And Chomp is Chomp is it Chomp or Chop. I'm sorry, Chop. They're a bunch of chumps. All right, they're a bunch of chumps. That's all I have to say. They're just making a fool of themselves. All right, so last part, Civil War. Are we going into a civil war? All right, my quick answer for you is no. We are not in a civil war. We are in a cultural war. All right, culture has no boundaries. Culture has no state. All right, no nation state. Um, we are mostly right now in a mimic war. We're committing mimic warfare. And mimic warfare is meme warfare. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to spread ideas. If you don't know what a meme is, you probably think of meme as some of the stuff I put out there, like the coronavirus, the Chinese coronavirus meme, or the CCP virus meme. You probably see me in my COVID-19 videos, like those kind of memes. Yes, those are memes, but the true definition of a meme is spreading idea from one person to another person, and that is a meme, or from one organism to another organism. So animals can spread memes. All right, animals can spread memes. One idea to another idea. That's a meme. And so for the human race, we're trying to spread ideas from one person to another. So we're in a warfare, an ideology warfare. We are in a mimic warfare right now. We're just trying to spread that idea. Could it lead to civil war? All right, that's probably what you want to know. How can this become civil war? All right, so I think to get to a civil war, you'll need more than 6 blocks of Seattle to commit civil war. Okay, you're going to need more than that. You're going to need more than just Seattle. All right, those are nothing more than local problems, which will be handled locally. What you need is not only a city to secede, all right, from the Union, but you will also need a state to back that city, because I don't think a lot of people are going to, even within each city of whatever, Washington, Portland, California, New York, not even people within that state, not all, the whole population is going to want succession, but you're going to need a state to back that succession, the cities to be in succession. Then you're going to have civil war. So until that happens, no, we are not in civil war. Okay, and I don't foresee a civil war. And if there was a civil war, it would end very quickly. Okay, because the state just does not have enough resources or firepower to overtake the U.S. military. A lot of these states, Washington, Portland, California, have U.S. military bases. So I don't think they're going to be succeeding soon. If they do, all right, that would mean that they would have to get part of the military to secede with them, which is not going to happen. Okay, it's just not going to happen. And if it does, it will be ended very quickly, because the U.S. military has too much overwhelming force for 1, 2, or 3 states, or 5 or 6 states to secede. All right, it'll be over in a matter of days, or not even days, an hour. It'll take a day to mobilize, then a few hours to take over or take back the state and return it back to the Union. So civil war is not happening anytime soon. Just not happening. All right. So if anything, we're in a cultural war that's turning into physical altercations, whether it's a shooting, bashing windows, bashing people's heads, knifing people. That's what you're seeing. Not a civil war. Domestic conflict, domestic terrorism, yeah, not a civil war. Anyways, I'm going to conclude this episode, so please like, share, comment, uh, subscribe. Till next time, everybody. Bye bye.